George Bush decided to get chummy with the media in a sit-down with the Today Show. Let's watch.
You were a guy who faced both praise and criticism from the media during your time in office, even at the times where you were dealing with the worst criticism, where it must have been very difficult to hear and read some of the things that were being said by the press in this country. Did you ever consider the media to be the enemy of the American people?
I consider the media to be indispensable to democracy. That we need an independent media to hold people like me to account. I mean, power can be very addictive, and it can be corrosive, and it's important for the media to call to account people who abuse their power, whether it be here or elsewhere. One of the things I spent a lot of time doing was trying to convince a person like Vladimir Putin, for example, to accept the notion of an independent press.
Right.
Remember when you subpoenaed 2 New York Times reporters to try to get their sources? It's easy to say, oh, yeah, I believe in a free press. Yeah, it's great. You know, we need the media. So it's so important. It's easy to say that when during the lead up to the Iraq war, they carried the water for the administration and painted the picture, the exact picture that you wanted them to paint. So when they're servile to you, because you were a good little establishment puppet, well then, yeah, they're not going to be critical of you, and then you get to go out there and say stuff like this. And then notice Matt Lauer there, oh, you know, in your dealings with the press, you face some of the worst criticisms. Yeah, after he got his entire agenda passed, and he had like 3 or 4 years of a grace period in an offensive war against a country that didn't attack us, yeah, maybe then there were starting to be some criticisms from some people on some networks. But they should have been rigid and strict and tough and looked out for the people and tried to get the facts out there from day one. And if they did that from day one, there wouldn't be a war in Iraq. But Matt Lauer, oh, now that Big Bad Trump is in power, let's rehabilitate the image of a goddamn war criminal. Guys, that's what he is. One of the things that makes me so sick is watching even partisan Democrats try to rehabilitate the image of George W. Bush and make it seem like, well, you know, anybody and everybody in relation to Trump is good. So yeah, rehabilitate fucking David Frum, another war criminal, Evan McMullen, what he's like a Mormon fundamentalist, uber conservative who just happens to not like Trump, so he critiques Trump all the time on Twitter, and now liberals love him. I mean, where are your principles? Where are your standards? Just because somebody's anti-Trump doesn't mean that person is good by definition. Just because he's mildly somewhat critical of some things Trump says doesn't mean he's a good person. I mean, by that logic, when Trump killed TPP, your ass should be out there saying, oh, now I'm for TPP. But by the way, that's exactly what they did. Think progress. Think progress. Progress is in their name. They had an article that was like, now the U.S. proves it's no longer serious about being a world leader with axing TPP. So that's the way it works. You're just reactionary. That's what you are. Whatever he does, we're for the opposite. So when he comes out for an infrastructure bill, we're against an infrastructure bill. When he does talking points about how, hey, maybe we should nation build, you say, now I want a nation build. Stop just doing blind obstruction and start thinking. And thinking means not only blind obstruction when necessary, which, by the way, is most of the time, to be clear. Most of the time you should do obstruction to Trump. But you also have to hold him accountable. Now, what we're seeing here is now a total and utter pass to George W. Bush, who should be in a prison cell somewhere until he dies. I mean, this is a guy who waged an offensive war against a country that didn't attack us. We learned, hey, Saddam didn't do 9/11. And we didn't, first of all, second you learn that, oh, that was the justification for the war, now we got to go home. He didn't do 9/11, so we got to go home. What are you talking about? The whole purpose for the war just crumbled. But what did they do? They moved the goalpost. Oh, no, it's okay, now the standard is he has weapons of mass destruction. Okay, wait, what? So are you afraid he's going to use them against us? Not necessarily, he just has them. Okay, but he's still not a direct threat against us right now? Not necessarily, but he's got weapons of mass destruction. Okay, that's not a reason to go in there and start an offensive war against a country. But nonetheless, they're still in there, and they were doing their thing. And then when we found out that was bullshit, they moved the goalposts again. They just keep moving the goalposts. Finally, the final argument was he's just a bad guy. And then if you dared to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't do the war, they straw man you and say, I guess you like Saddam, and you're in favor of everything he's ever done. Wait, what? No, I'm just saying, just because he's a bad guy, that's not the standard to go in there and topple a government, a sovereign government. That's like, I mean, George Bush was a bad guy. Do other countries have a right to do regime change against us? Trump's a bad guy. Do other countries, should Iran do regime change against us? And say, that's the same standard you guys used. He's a rogue actor. He just killed 30 civilians in Yemen, including an 8-year-old girl. That's a rogue state. It's a terror state. We got to get rid of him. No, man, no. So stop with the rehabilitate. There's no such thing as woke George Bush. Okay, what's the next move? Now they're going to allow on Dick Cheney and have Dick Cheney lecture us and lecture the Trump administration about what is moral. I don't want to hear anything from Dick Cheney about what's moral. I don't want to hear anything from George W. Bush, who had a compliant media in the lead up to the Iraq War. I don't want to hear Dick about, oh yeah, we need a free press, because the free press towed the line for you completely when we needed them most. When it was your massive deregulatory agenda, they weren't there to fight back against you. When it was your tax cuts for the rich, they weren't there to fight back against you. When it was for your unnecessary war in Iraq, they weren't there to fight back against you. So it's easy to say that. I need everybody to start thinking in terms of who's your ally and who's not your ally. If partisan Democrats want to align themselves with avowed neocons, just understand that your big tent party is now so big that it allows in the opposition. It allows in your sworn enemy. It allows in war criminals. And if that's the direction you're going to go, aligning yourself with war criminals, you're going to lose the base forever, and you should lose the base forever.